Good evening, everyone. Everybody can hear me okay, correct? Yes, I can hear my voice echoing through the whole place, so all right. Good evening. Welcome to everyone to Cornwall Central Middle School on this balmy tropical evening. Thank you all for coming this evening, and also for those watching via live stream. I can't help but point out the significance of today's date and a visit by our speaker tonight. No, she's not telling us the groundhog was wrong, but rather the significance of the number 2. You see, today's date is 2/2/22, and I couldn't help but look into the coincidence of this date in our community assembly tonight. In many cultures and spiritual realms, the number 2 represents harmony, balance, union, and love. Additionally, it was 1 year ago to the day that County Executive Stephen Newhouse declared February to be Choose Love Awareness Month in Orange County due to the rise in mental health awareness and involvement of other local communities in this movement. Tonight's presentation is all about how our community and schools can learn the same core principal values to not only help our children whom we love so much, but also to help ourselves. These past 2 years have been extremely difficult for all of us, especially our children who are looking to us for guidance. They observe how we treat others, how we speak to each other on social media, how we react to stress, how we react to news on the TV, how we disagree with others. They are always watching, listening, absorbing, and learning from us. I can tell you with 100% certainty that there is strength in numbers. Have you ever tried a diet on your own and everyone all around you suddenly loves chocolate? What about when you have others join you to support you, to pick each other up, to hold you accountable, even when you ate that half gallon of ice cream when you were not supposed to? My point is, there is strength in numbers in this community when we choose to model the behavior we want our children to become. We especially can achieve this strength when we do this together. Community and schools in perfect harmony, balance, union, and love. Back in November, we had the privilege of having Ms. Lewis speak to our entire district faculty. And when I can say what an amazing time that was is an understatement. It injected our entire district staff with energy when they needed it most, especially through the difficulty of the pandemic and everything that everybody was experiencing. Our February social emotional theme of the month is kindness in the Cornwall Central School District. I cannot think of a better way to kick off this month's theme than having tonight's speaker rejuvenate all of us with their story about choosing love over anger, hate, and resentment. Now, on to our speaker. Ms. Scarlett Lewis founded the Jesse Lewis Choose Love movement after her son Jesse was murdered during the Sandy Hook Elementary School tragedy in December of 2012. Shortly after his death, Scarlett decided to be part of the solution to the issues we're seeing in our society today. She created the Choose Love movement and became an advocate for character development and social emotional learning, which teaches children how to manage their emotions, feel connected, and have healthy relationships. Before his death, Jesse left a message on the kitchen chalkboard: nurturing, healing, love. When Scarlett learned that these words are included in the definition of compassion across all cultures, she realized that love, connection, and belonging are universal wants and needs that connect all of humanity. And now, I am honored and humbled to welcome to the podium our speaker, Ms. Scarlett Lewis.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody that came out tonight. I really appreciate that. You know, we're talking about modeling for our kids, and that's some of the reason that I'm here. That day, on December 14th, I was a single mom with 2 boys, full-time job, and called back to the school to be reunited with my son. And of course, he was missing, and so I was waiting. My 12-year-old son was in 7th grade at the middle school, which was about a half a mile away. He was in lockdown in Spanish class. He says he still can't take Spanish class because of that. I don't know. Traumatizing, very traumatizing for him, though. And he wanted to come and wait with me. And so, of course, nothing like that could ever happen to somebody like me, and I was just waiting to be reunited. So I said, sure, yeah. Nana, his grandmother, my mother who lives in town, helps me out. She'll come and pick you up, and she's on her way over. So she and my stepfather picked up JT and brought him to the firehouse. And little did I know this would be one of the most traumatic days of our lives. And we had been through trauma before, so we know what that is. And during the course of that day, which was obviously very difficult, I'm trying to get any sort of information that I can get, I realized something in the moment, because I practiced being in the moment with my kids. And by the way, that is the way to live your life with the fewest regrets, is being present with the ones that you love. It is considerably harder now with 24/7 information being pumped into us with our phones, but I made that a practice as a single mom. I remember the day that I realized that I spent more time at work during the week than I did with my sons at home. That was the day I literally came home, unplugged the TV, put it in my car the next morning, and donated it to Goodwill, because I wanted to be with them when I was home. So we played games, we read books, we talked around the table, we were present. I practiced being present, because a lot of our lives are not lived in the present. We're thinking about something that happened in the past. We are fearing or planning for the future, but life is happening right here. And so that day, I was practicing being present as well, because when you're present, you're able to thoughtfully respond to what's going on. And I wanted to have all of my faculties with me, especially during that time. But because I was present, I think I realized, as JT, my 12-year-old son, was sitting huddled in a circle, we were outside, right out of the line side of the media, but waiting. And I realized in the moment, as I had people coming up and asking me tough questions, do you have a recent picture of Jesse? Did he have any identifying marks on his body? You're thinking, ooh, that's not a good question. And I realized that JT was watching everything that I did. He was not only listening to every word, but he was watching every facial expression, every gesticulation, everything that I was doing. He was learning in the moment how to handle difficulty, challenges, roadblocks, maybe even tragedy for the rest of his life. And that realization helped me rise to the occasion in that moment and try to be the person that I wanted him to grow into be. And you're right, that is exactly what we're doing every day. Yes, we're doing it in times of difficulty. We're doing it, when times are good too. But we are the role models. And I'm traveling around and I'm going to schools and kids are suffering, but I don't really wonder why, because I think about what they watch. There was research. When I first started out, of course, I'm researching everything, and I found this research report that I just pulled up again. In 1998, there was a report that said that by the time kids are in 5th grade, they will have seen 8,000 violent killings. Now, if you think about 1998, that was like over 20 years ago, and we didn't have really our cell phones at that time just pumping information into us and all of this negativity. Not so much the video games then. They were gentler, seemingly. And then it said by the time that they were 18, they would witness 250,000 acts of violence. So when we're thinking about modeling and we're thinking about what our kids are seeing, we really have to think about providing them with the skills and tools to be able to manage what they see. That was in 1998. Can you imagine what those figures are now? I haven't seen an updated research report, but I can't even imagine. So I decided that I wanted to be part of the solution. After, I'm so devastated on December 14th, but I took a step back and I was watching how people were reacting. And they were reacting like you would think that they would, in anger, and there was blaming and finger pointing and fault finding, of course. But all of the blame was going towards the shooter and his mother. And of course, that they were absolutely at fault. But I thought, that really doesn't work for me. Because I was a single mom with a son that had some sensory issues. I was trying to get him help, and I couldn't get him help. And if it really was all their fault, then it would never have happened before Sandy Hook, and it had multiple times, and then it would never happen again. But it has, over 350 times. Since Sandy Hook in the last 9 years, over 50 times last year alone. I don't even know how long we were in school. Were we in school all year last year? Okay. But the point is, it's not all their fault. Yes, they are responsible, but I felt like I had to take my part of the responsibility too. I lived in that community. And my son went to school in that community. So I wanted to be part of the solution. I knew that what happened was 100% preventable. And I knew that I couldn't go back to any semblance of my former life. I had to dedicate my life to being part of the solution to the issues that are escalating now. And so I'm going to kind of walk you through. I'm going to give you a little bit of my story, which I already have, but more about what I've learned and how I've turned that into a solution that's now spreading. And I feel very strongly about it. I have been traveling and doing this for 9 years. If there was a better solution, I would get behind it, because I just want our kids to be safe. Number one, and I want them to be healthy and living their lives as they should, having fun, and that's my goal. So we'll be able to talk about it afterwards. If you have any pressing questions, you can certainly raise your hand. This is Choose Love Awareness Month. So this is a special month for us where we have a lot of fun things going on. I encourage you all to go on our website, chooselovemovement.org, and download the toolkit and do these things with your kids, practice them. I'm going to be giving you tonight will enable you to thoughtfully respond with love in any situation, circumstance, or interaction you will ever face. You guys are going to walk away with it tonight. You're going to have it as a skill and tool in your belt, you all too. And you're going to be able to use it. You're going to be able to pay it forward. You're going to be able to explain it, and hopefully it will be wonderful for you. So, I wanted the other thing that happened after the tragedy at Sandy Hook was this polarization that started happening, and of course it's grown worse 9 years later. But on that day, people went into two camps. It was pro-gun or it was anti-gun. And for me, I didn't want to be against something for the rest of my life. I actually wanted to live my life being for something. And what is the most powerful thing in this universe that connects us all as human beings? We all want it. We all need it. And when we don't have it, we suffer. And that's love. That love connects us all as human beings, the want and need to love and be loved. We all have that from babies until the time that we're ready to pass on. That connects us all. It doesn't matter any perceived difference or real difference at all amongst us. We're all the same in that. So I decided to be for love and to offer the skills and tools that we need to be able to choose that in our lives. That is the Choose Love formula, because there are two immutable forces in our world, and they impact all of us almost every single day. There's no opinion about them. They don't belong to a political party. That's love and pain, hurt. We all want love, and we all feel pain. We know it. And as parents, we don't want our kids to feel pain at all. In fact, it becomes very difficult, by the way, when you've had a son murdered and then you have a remaining son, to not just want to bubble wrap him and do everything for him. We don't want our kids to feel pain, ever. But they will. We know they will. We know that they're going to have difficulty, roadblocks, challenges, pain and suffering. We know that. And so it's our job to give them the skills and tools that they need to be able to face that difficulty in their lives and learn from it, grow through it, be strengthened by it, and then take that wisdom, because that is wisdom, and use it to help other people. And we can do that. And that's actually what the Choose Love movement has as a goal, to be able to do that with kids. If I said survival of the, what would you say? Fittest. I was talking to 6th, 7th, and 8th graders the other day at a school in Connecticut, and I said, have you ever heard of Charles Darwin, the famous evolutionist? They were like, no. And I said, all right, well, survival of the. They said, fittest, all of them. I said, well, then you have heard of him. Survival of the fittest and the strongest, right? That's what we know. You all know it. But would it surprise you to know that he never said that? Charles Darwin never said that. He didn't conclude that in his research. You know what he concluded? He concluded that it would be survival of the most sympathetic that would live to pass down their genes and then to thrive. And by sympathetic, we know that he meant altruistic, generous, and compassionate. What? Doesn't that kind of put everything? It's like a 180-degree turn. That's what famous evolutionist Charles Darwin concluded in his research. But doesn't that make more sense? Because I'm up here because so many people loved and supported me. And I wonder why you're in your seats and doing what you're doing. Most likely because you also had that love and support. We need each other to survive and thrive. We're social beings. We need love and support. We need to help one another. That is the foundation of the Choose Love movement. But at the same time, I read the headlines too. I read the articles. Our diseases of despair continue to escalate. We have a 30% increase in homicide last year. We have a 30% increase in overdoses last year alone. And this is going to take a different way of looking at these problems. We're going to have to start addressing the cause of this suffering. And I believe that that's what the Choose Love movement does by teaching essential life skills that help kids and us big kids face our issues and move through them. And I'm going to talk more about what this looks like. But otherwise, we're just putting a Band-Aid on the problems, and it's not stemming the blood flow. We have to address the cause, and it is a different way of thinking, and I'm going to talk about the neuroscience behind that in a moment. But there is hope. There is hope. That's why I'm here. And that's why I have dedicated my life to this. to talking to anybody that will listen. And I'm just so thrilled and thankful for the support that I've gotten here, the reason that I'm here, you all, and I'm excited to share this with you. I have a 4-minute introductory video that I'm going to play, and then I'm going to get back up.
Love those moves. Awesome, Jess. It is August 24th, 2012, and Jess has brand new soccer shoes.
So prior to 12/14, 2012, I was a single mom with 2 boys. It was kind of an unremarkable life. It was such a great life. You know, I just wanted to be a mom, and I just wanted to be with my kids.
Run the ball up to me.
One day, you're a mom with 2 boys, one boy riding in a car seat in the back seat. So one morning, I'm holding hands with my 6-year-old in his car seat, and the next thing that I know,
Cut.
there is no 6-year-old. He's been murdered. So I had come home for the first time, and I was getting Jesse's clothes for the funeral, and I walked through the kitchen on my way out, and I noticed these 3 words that Jesse had written on the kitchen chalkboard shortly before he died. He wrote, "Nurturing, healing, love." These words were a message of comfort for his family and friends, and inspiration for the world. It's where we needed to turn, and I knew I'd be spending the rest of my life spreading this message. I didn't have to create a solution. There was one available, and it's called social emotional learning. And social emotional learning proactively prevents violence. I believe that Jesse is a part of this organization. I actually believe that he's leading it. And all I have to do is just be present. I live with a tremendous dichotomy in my life every single day. It's never out of my mind why I am leading a worldwide movement to choose love. It's because my 6-year-old son was shot in his 1st grade classroom alongside 19 of his classmates in one of the worst mass murders in U.S. history. I feel like I meet Jesse a lot in schools. I'll look into a child's eyes and I'll see Jesse looking back at me. And how blessed am I? And how grateful I am that my purpose is spreading a message of choosing love, and given to me by my 6-year-old son. I like to follow that video up with a quote by Nelson Mandela. People have to learn to hate. Babies aren't born hating. Babies are actually born gravitating towards compassion. We know that through research, not that we have to research that. But if we can be taught to hate, we can be taught to love. For love comes more naturally to the human heart than its opposite. And by the way, everything that I'm talking about tonight, I know I'm talking about love, but there are decades of research behind everything that I'm talking about. So I had this couch moment. People often ask me, like, well, how did you make this shift so quickly into wanting to become part of the solution? And I really did. I started the Choose Love movement in January of 2013. It was very soon. I had this moment on my mom's couch. And as a single mom with 2 boys, and I have a farm, I'm never sitting down, ever. And after Jesse's murder, I found myself just sitting on my mom's couch and not moving and thinking, and I usually don't do that. And they had, I don't know who arranged this, but there was a therapist, a trauma therapist that came around and visited all the families, and she brought with her a woman who had also lost a son to violence. And I hadn't talked to anybody who had ever lost a child to violence. So they came in. I didn't necessarily want to talk to them because it was only a few days after, but they came. And the woman who had lost a son, I was sitting on the couch. She sat down on the floor and she put her hand on my knee and she said, I just want you to know that I've lost a son to violence as well. Oh, my eyes were riveted to her. And I said, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. How did you manage? And she said, well, I just want you to know that the pain that you feel right now, you are going to feel forever. It's going to be the same. It's never going to go away. And I did this. Stop right there. Right to her face, which probably wasn't very nice, but I said, stop. That might be your experience. That is not going to be my experience. Because I knew in my mind I could not live with that pain. And so right then and there, I realized this journey is going to be my own journey. I'm going to have to create it. Nobody else is going to tell me what I'm going to do. And so really, it helped me make that shift early on. And at Jesse's funeral, I got up and I spoke because so many people were asking me, what can I do? And I said, there is something that you can do. I said, this whole tragedy started with an angry thought in Adam Lanza's head. Adam Lanza was the recent graduate of the Newtown school system. And I pictured him as a little boy having an angry thought without the skills and tools needed to manage that thought. And we know through neuroscience that every thought we have on a daily basis impacts us on a cellular level. It leads us to languishing or flourishing. And so this angry thought just continued and continued, and without management ended up in rage. And actually, when I learned about Adam's life, I learned that he had suffered from, when he was very young, a lifetime of isolation, bullying, loneliness, abuse. And I felt compassion for him. I felt compassion for him. When everybody else was pointing the finger at his mom, I felt compassion for her. I was a single mom. I was doing the best that I could with the skills and tools that I have, which weren't that many, frankly. I felt compassion. So anyway, I said it was an angry thought. And the amazing thing to me was that an angry thought can be changed. So I asked everybody that day to start thinking about what they think about and to change one angry thought a day into a loving thought. I said, by doing that, you'll make yourself feel better because, angry, hateful, resentful thoughts, they feel bad. That's reflected in our behavior. Compassionate, loving, kind thoughts feel good. That's reflected in how we show up in our relationships and our behavior. So everyone went out to the 4 corners of the United States. They started calling me, emailing me, texting me, saying that one simple act had completely changed their lives. And my dad has a best friend in a Midwestern state, Michigan, I think. He's a doctor. He wrote my dad an email. He said, David, I never knew. I have been angry my entire life. I never knew that. I am choosing love. My staff is choosing love. And I thought, wow, I'm on to something. And this, of course, for those of you in the mental health field, is called the cognitive triangle. Our thoughts impact how we feel, which then impacts our behavior and how we show up in our relationships. And we have so much more control over this cognitive triangle than we ever imagined. One of the foundational components of the Choose Love movement comes from this quote from Viktor Frankl. And Viktor Frankl was a Holocaust survivor. He was brought to the concentration camp in a cattle car with members of his family, including his pregnant wife. When they got to the concentration camp and they were taken off the cattle car, the members of his family were immediately taken and gassed, murdered. Victor's life was retained because the Nazis thought that they would use his degrees in some way. But what Victor did in his years of imprisonment in several Nazi German concentration camps, the worst of the worst situations, was he used it as an experiment. And he watched how people who had everything taken from them, they had their families taken from them, all their material possessions. They were beaten and tortured. They were starved. They were stripped of their clothing and dignity. And he found, even in that situation, they had one freedom left. And that was the freedom to choose how they responded. And he found that those that responded with love not only survived better, but they survived longer. So he had actually gone through, made notes on little scraps of paper and clothing, and that became his book, Man's Search for Meaning. So this quote has to do with every single person in this room. Between stimulus is what happens to us in life, and it can be anything that has ever happened to you in your entire life, anything, or anything that ever will. Between stimulus and our thoughtful response, this is not impetuous reaction, there's a space. In that space lies our freedom and power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and freedom. So the way that we say it in the Choose Love movement programming in schools is, we can't always choose what happens to us. Isn't that the truth? Collectively, we would never have chosen this global pandemic. I would never have chosen to have my son murdered. But I can take my personal power back in how I choose to respond. And a lot of what I'm talking about is power and control. Because when you don't have it in your life, you do not feel good. You feel anxious. This is literally technically called locus of control. Locus is location of your control as a human being. And when it's outside of you, you feel like things are happening to you. You find yourself blaming others for where you are now. You fault find, you finger point. You feel helpless because you're not in control. That can lead to feeling hopelessness. That can lead to anger and violence. The formula that I'm going to share with you is specifically designed to return that locus of control back inside you. Because when you feel like you have control, when you feel like you have power in your life, you make things happen. You are in control. Opportunities arise. And you feel like you can do anything. So let's bring it all together, what we've been talking about so far. Our thoughts make up our beliefs, which make up our perception of our reality and how we view our world. We have control over our thoughts. We need to focus on what we can control, and then we can become victors rather than victims. Our power as human beings is in our ability to choose. And we start making those choices from the moment we wake up in the morning. You wake up, you open your eyes, you're like, God, I'm still tired. How are you gonna greet the world? Are you gonna greet it, oh God, grumbly, good morning, good, what's good about it? I need my coffee. Or are you gonna start your day off with gratitude? A new chapter. I get to start over today. I get to work on my to-do list. It's our power of our choices. And you know, this is so, one of my favorite groups to work with are prisoners. Because I love seeing the moment they realize they had a choice. They didn't know they had a choice. It's pretty amazing. So let's talk about, well, I was going to say our society teaches us that anger and violence is power. That's what's power. The cool guys have the guns, right? And they, it's the opposite. It's actually those that can be kind and gentle that are the most powerful. So we're trying to kind of rewrite the narrative on that a little bit. But we face a lot of issues. And by the way, these are issues that we face going into the pandemic. These are not updated statistics, so I'm going to blow through them. But we had a mental illness crisis going into the pandemic. Half of our U.S. youth would have had a mental health diagnosis by the time they're 18. The majority of that diagnosis was anxiety. We know 70% of those kids wouldn't get professional help, so they suffered alone. When you look at the long-term outcomes of untreated anxiety, they're everything that we see. We know that trauma has increased exponentially. When the ACEs study, Adverse Childhood Experiences study, was done, a huge study on childhood trauma 25 years ago, 1 in 5 kids was coming to school having experienced trauma. Now, it's, I think it's in the 90%. We know that bullying has increased. What? How about all those anti-bullying programs? But bullying has actually increased since we started tracking it by the federal government in and around 2008. We know that we have more suicides in the U.S. than murders, and we know suicide is a huge problem. Remember the locus of control? When you feel like you don't have control, you become helpless, hopeless, and that's when that becomes an issue. Substance abuse is skyrocketing. What did they just found a middle schooler just overdosed, and they found 100 bags of fentanyl in his room. I can't remember what state that was. It's skyrocketing. In fact, I have one of my best friends just lost her 31-year-old son, Blake, to an accidental overdose. Blake was 31 years old. He was the most beautiful person you would ever love to meet. He was just an amazing person. Except when he was young, his mom had to go in for a heart transplant. And he was abused by one of his family members and introduced to drugs. And he didn't have the coping skills, the skills and tools that he needed to manage that pain. So unfortunately, we lost him. And that was Linda's only son. So back to this, this is a great graphic of how to address these things. You know, we see all these symptoms on the surface, like bullying, violence, substance abuse, mental illness, loneliness, even anxiety. And we have programs to address those, but that's where the majority of our focus goes. We really need to readjust a portion of our resources and efforts to address the root cause of those issues, or we will never get ahead of them. Like we haven't. We have been chasing them as they escalate. So I like this quote by Desmond Tutu. We need to stop just pulling people out of the river. We need to go upstream and find out why they're falling in the first place. School shootings are a great example of that. we have an epidemic of school shootings. I mean, these are not our new normal. It's our normal. We know they're going to happen. And they don't have to. It's our responsibility to keep our kids safe in school. Our kids should be able to go to school and know that they're safe. And there is a way to do that. You know, here's the other thing. We talk about the loneliness that's happened during the pandemic, but loneliness was a super pandemic going into the COVID pandemic. There was research that showed that loneliness can increase inflammation and can even lead to heart attack and death. All these horrible things that loneliness can lead to. And of course, now we have so much more loneliness. And I want to ask you a question. If you haven't heard me before, where does loneliness start in the body? Does anybody want to take a guess? Yes, excellent. Sometimes people, they hold their heart because it travels there because your heart has brain cells. Sometimes people go like this because it travels to the stomach and it makes it hurt. But it happens as a thought. I'm lonely. Because you could be lonely in a room with 1,000 people. It starts with a thought. Remember back to Jesse's funeral, and a thought can be changed. But now we have some social distancing. Maybe we're coming out of that. I'm not sure. But this has been a problem. Because in hindsight, we should have said physically distanced, but socially connected. We need each other. We're actually wired for connection. We're wired to look into one another's eyes. We're wired to need compassionate touch. We need each other. So this has been a big problem, and we're going to be dealing with this problem for a while. In fact, our U.S. Attorney General just said that our youth are having a mental health crisis. And if he's saying that, we're in the middle of it. But there is something that we can do. We can give our kids a tool belt that have all of these coping skills in it and skills that they're going to use for the rest of their life in every life situation. These skills and tools, we're not born with them. We have to be taught them. And are we taught them at home? Yes. Best case scenario, we are. But we know now that they have to be reinforced and practiced at school. And school is sometimes the only place that kids get these skills and tools. By the way, when I was researching a solution to what happened to my son, and I came upon these essential life skills, I thought immediately, wow, I don't have these skills and tools. I don't have them. Because my parents didn't have them. My parents were great. They didn't have them. You can't give what you don't have. I didn't give them to my boys because I couldn't give what I didn't have. It's really important that we all work on this together. Really important. But you can learn them at any age. I'm living proof. I was 44 years old when Jesse was murdered, and I've learned these skills and tools, and it has helped me tremendously. Anybody interested in the secret to happiness? Harvard University is doing a lifespan study. They're 85 years into it, but when they were 75 years into this lifespan study, following newborns all the way until to older age, they found the secret to happiness, and that is healthy relationships and meaningful connections. But guess what? We're not born with the skills and tools to do that. We have to learn them. And then we not only have to learn them, we have to practice them. And consciously practice them. It's pretty cool. And we can do that. And we can do that as adults. We know that, I'm sure that everybody in here has experienced a little bit of anxiety. I was in a huge auditorium the other day, and I said, who's had anxiety? Everyone raised their hand. The opposite of anxiety is positive action. And there is something that we can all do. And this formula will give you a tool in order to do that. I want to go through a little bit of the research behind teaching these essential life skills. We know it's the number one way to have a safe school. What? The number one way to have a safe school? Well, I'm going to go back to that. It is the number one most proactive and preventative mental health initiative we have. It can reduce and prevent the suffering before it starts. Now, yes, there are biological reasons for mental illness, absolutely, that need medication. I have taken medication in my life, but the majority of what we see can be reduced and prevented by using coping skills. It's the number one way to improve culture and climate. We're going to go back to that. It's the number one attribute wanted by top universities and employers. That's why employers call me and they say, hello, we need that formula. It's the number one way to break the generational cycle of dysfunction that can go out 7 generations. And it's the number one way to reduce taxes. Why? Because we spend so much money throwing money at the issues. Think about the opioid crisis. How many tens of billions of dollars have we spent on that? I mean, hundreds of billions in the last 10 or 20 years. We could spend a fraction of that if we address the root cause and reduce and prevent it. So check out, this is amazing. Kids that have social and emotional learning in there, and that's emotional management, that's making good decisions. Kids that have that teaching in classrooms get better grades and test scores. They have higher attendance, higher graduation rates, less stress and anxiety, better climate, less behavioral issues, and it is a statistically effective way to reduce and prevent bullying. And then later in life, because they've followed kids all the way into adulthood, they have less substance abuse, less mental illness of all kinds, less incarceration, less violence and anger, even less divorce rates. That's where I say, see, I could have benefited. And just check out this research report. I love this. I share it all the time, but it followed 800 kids over 20 years. And what did it find? You don't have to read it. I'll read it to you. Just think about how dramatic this is. For every 1 point increase in a child's social competency score in kindergarten, they were twice as likely to obtain a college degree and 46% more likely to have a full-time job by the age of 25. Conversely, for every 1 point decrease in a child's social skills score in kindergarten, he or she had a 67% higher chance of having been arrested in early adulthood, a 52% higher rate of binge drinking, and an 82% higher chance of being in or on a waiting list for public housing. What is the takeaway? The earlier we can start, the better. We actually have prenatal programs because did you know that the baby's brain is forming in the womb, and as a mother, you are giving it instructions based on how you are responding, reacting to your environment? You're either telling your baby, hey, you're going to come out, it's going to be safe, it's all good, or hey, don't plan on reading when you get out here, plan on running. And that can impact the size of the baby's prefrontal cortex. So prenatal, infant, toddler. As a single mom, I gave my 6-week-old babies over to daycare providers. And now I know that they loved them, but I don't think that they had knowledge about brain development and what they could be doing at that age. So important to start early, but I'm living proof that you can learn and use these skills as well as an adult. So here are results of our program, and they're pretty amazing. You see, last year, I'll just point out one. Last year, you saw a 58% increase in academic performance. which is pretty amazing considering there was a lot of loss of learning in most places based on COVID. And it all started for me here. Jesse's message on the kitchen chalkboard. I came home to this little farmhouse that I shared with my 2 boys, and I found this message, nurturing, healing, love. I was blown away. I couldn't believe it. And I knew instantly that if Adam Lanza had been able to give and receive nurturing, healing, love, the tragedy would never have happened. It was so simple. But simple isn't always easy. And I knew that I would be spending the rest of my life literally spreading this message. Here's a close-up of it. There was a doctoral professor that did research and found that these 3 words are in the definition of compassion across all cultures. And when you break down the meaning of each of the words, it becomes a powerful and profound formula for thoughtfully responding with love in any situation, circumstance, or interaction you will ever face. Here's the formula. It starts with courage, because courage is the most important character value that underlies all the rest. Nurturing means loving kindness and gratitude. Healing literally means forgiveness. Love is compassion in action. When you have the courage to be grateful, even when things aren't going your way, the courage to forgive, even when the person who hurt you isn't sorry, doesn't care, may not even know, the courage to step outside of your busyness and distraction, maybe even your own pain and suffering to help somebody else, you've chosen love. And we're going to delve into that in a moment. But I can't talk about courage without talking about Jesse's courage. Jesse stood up to the shooter that came into his first grade classroom. He had just murdered his principal and, bless you, principal and guidance counselor right outside his door when he turned into Jesse's classroom, and his gun ran out of bullets. So Jesse directed his classmates to run, and 9 were able to escape before the gunman reloaded and then killed everyone else in the room. For that act of bravery, he's on the short list for the Medal of Freedom, which is the highest civilian honor. And he was given a commander-in-chief funeral. A commander-in-chief funeral is reserved for heads of state and returning war heroes. And Jesse was considered a war hero because his first grade classroom was a literal war zone. I talk about that courage because we all have the capacity for Jesse's courage. And, I hope that none of us are ever even remotely in any situation like that. But I'm talking about the courage that it takes to live our lives every single day and make the choices that we need to make. I'm talking about the ability to move from fear to love, because in reality, it's not what happens to you in life. The person sitting next to you on either side, they've had their pain. They've had stuff happen. Sometimes people come up to me and they say, gosh, I want to share my story, but it's nothing like what yours has been. And I'm thinking, it's worse. It's much worse. You cannot compare grief, is what I'm trying to say. And it doesn't matter what it was that happened to you. It's how you choose to thoughtfully respond. And that is moving from fear to love. And so here's this message, nurturing, healing, love. And a lot of people ask me, why did you name your son's foundation Choose Love? And it's because we have the power within ourselves to choose. And where we focus in life, what thoughts we focus on is the direction that we're going to go. So I'm going to put something in here for all of us that like race cars. Mario Andretti, the most famous race car driver, right? He has the most wins. Is that right? He has the most wins out of any race car driver. He's the most successful. And when he was asked, how are you so successful, way beyond what other race car drivers are? What is your secret sauce? He said, I never look at the wall. And then he went on to say, when I'm driving at such high speeds, I have to look right in front of me. I have to keep my eyes right where I'm going. If I ever, for even a split second, take my eyes off where I'm going and glance at the wall in fear, that's where my car will go and I will crash. Our focus is so important. The choices that we make and what we choose to focus on each and every day in our lives. We know through science, decades of research, that optimism, I actually like talking on Zoom because I take my hands and I go, optimism broadens our worldview. We have opportunities that arise. And we know that anger and fear is literally like putting on leather blinders. It narrows our view and perspective, literally. We know this, but the problem is, so here, before we get to the problem, I love these brain scans. So the brain on the right is thinking positive, loving, kind, compassionate thoughts. The brain on the left is thinking angry, hateful, rageful thoughts. Check out how much more of the brain is activated on the right. I mean, this literally impacts everything that we do. But here's the problem. Our brains want to keep us safe. That's not a problem. That's a good thing. But we have a negative bias because of that. So in caveman times, it was the caveman that was searching for the saber-toothed tiger and that saw it, that was going to run. That was the caveman that would survive to live and pass down his genes. We don't have saber-toothed tigers today. So our brains focus on negativity. When you look at the neuroscience behind this, we have tens of thousands of thoughts every single day, all day long. We know that between 70 to 80% are negative. And we know that over 95%, on average, of our thoughts are repetitive. So they're the same thoughts, negative thoughts, over and over and over again. You're not the only one. That's just the way that we're wired. And our brain does that to keep us safe. And that's okay. All we need to know is awareness of that so that we can use it to our benefit to overcome it. It's a great thing to be safe, but it's not a great thing to have all of those negative thoughts because 97% of the things that we worry about and we're anxious about every day never happen. In fact, the acronym for fear is false evidence appearing real, if you've ever heard of that. But neuroscience backs up what I'm saying. So there's a neuroscientist named Rick Hansen, and he is known for saying that negativity sticks to our brain like Velcro, and positivity bounces off it like Teflon. And this impacts almost everything that we do every day. It's impacted our research. 99 out of 100 research reports are on what is harmful for us and what can hurt us until positive psychology came along and then started studying what can help us. This is the other reason why everyone knows PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, everyone. I love talking at mental health conferences where I've got 1,000 people in front of me and I go, who's heard of PTSD? And people are looking at like, seriously? Is she seriously asking us that question? Obviously, everybody has. And then I say, who's heard of PTG, post-traumatic growth? And maybe one person in the front seat will raise their hand. Here's the interesting thing. The vast majority of us experience post-traumatic growth. There's research behind this. You can look it up when you go home. There's so many benefits to post-traumatic growth, yet we focus on PTSD. When only going into COVID, 7% of the population would suffer from PTSD at one point in their life. The vast majority of us grow through difficulty, roadblocks, challenges. That's how we're shaped and molded, is through difficulty. That's what gets our attention. That's what makes us change in positive ways. This is some of the research behind post-traumatic growth. You discover personal strengths. You enhance relationships and weed out weak ones. You discover new possibilities. You have a new appreciation for life. You may deepen your spirituality. There's so many more. Yet most people haven't heard of it. We teach about it. You know, I shared that day with you at the firehouse on December 14th when I was waiting. And you know what goes through your mind? You catastrophize. The worst case scenario, right? So I'm thinking, oh, God, if this goes south, if this doesn't work out, if Jesse's dead, I am definitely, what did I know? I'm definitely going to have PTSD. And how is that going to manifest in me? I'm probably going to be institutionalized. And who's going to take care of my 12-year-old son? These were all these fearful thoughts running through my head over and over. What if I had known about post-traumatic growth? Maybe I would have thought, this is, terrible. What, I'm supposed to grow through this? I'm supposed to be strengthened by this? How is that even possible? But do you see already the difference in thinking? I love this quote by Helen Keller, who was struck with a disease when she was 3 years old that left her blind and deaf. And she said, character cannot be developed in ease and quiet. Only through experiences of trial and suffering can the soul be strengthened, vision cleared, ambition inspired, and success achieved. So let's talk about safety for a minute, because none of this matters if our kids aren't safe, right? So this is the number one thing, safety. We want our kids to be safe. I don't know if you've ever seen The Pathway to Violence, but this is used by the Department of Homeland Security, and usually violence starts with a grievance and then escalates into an attack. So now we've gone through kind of our negative bias. We focus on the negatives. We focus on the issues. So which part of this scale would we focus on, do you think, initially? The attack end, right? And we have hardening schools, recovery response, all very important, incredibly important. I'm all about hardening schools, but I also know that even more importantly is the culture of a school. Because when you have a connected, loving, kind culture, that can reduce and precede a grievance from even happening. Or if one does, and you have a program like Choose Love that teaches essential life skills, you've got not only the educators, but you have the students with the skills and tools to manage that grievance before it escalates into an attack. So this is also in the final report of the Federal Commission on School Safety. Chapter 1 is character education. It focuses on proactive prevention, and the Jesse Lewis Choose Love movement is in there. So let's talk about how emotionally intelligent we are. You've heard that phrase batted about. There are about 2,000 labels for emotions, and there was some research done by a social scientist. She wanted to find out, how emotionally intelligent are we as a society? And so she took several years and interviewed several thousand people. And she found to be considered relatively emotionally intelligent, you needed to be able to label about 30. And these are the 30. How many do you think on average that we could label as a society, as adults? Over several years, several thousand people. So 30 to be relatively emotionally intelligent. How many do you think? Does anybody want to guess? 10? Less. Anybody else? What'd you say? Yes. Do you want to say what they are? Okay. Well, then you should have said 1. You know that I like when people go 1, because then I can go, oh, give us some credit, please. That's good. All right. I'm glad you remembered. Happy, sad, mad. Happy, sad, mad. And why is that a problem? Who cares, right? Well, it's a problem when you think about anger, because anger is like an iceberg. You see the anger, but you always have an underlying feeling. Anger never happens in a vacuum, ever. There's always an underlying feeling. And if you can't identify the feeling, you can't manage the anger. So, like, I'll read a few underlying feelings and think about whether this would precipitate anger in you, like fear, overwhelm, disappointment, frustration, anxiety, loneliness, jealousy, humiliation, embarrassment. But if you can't identify that feeling, you can't manage your anger. So now you know why everything's happening today the way that it's happening. Just kind of kidding, not really. But here's the problem. If I can't tell you what I'm thinking, I mean, I think sometimes we think kids are going to go, excuse me, I'm having thoughts of self-harm and harming others. Can you please get me some resources that I need? Right? Well, if kids can't express what they're feeling, if they can't tell someone what they're feeling, then what do? It comes out in their behavior. Then and this is, by the way, big kids and little kids. Everything that I'm saying today is not just kids. It's big. I consider myself a big kid. So I say little kids and big kids, because behavior is communication as well. And it's really important that we realize that, because we are getting messages. Kids are telling us. We just have to sometimes translate what they're saying. But they do let us know that they're in pain. So I worked with educators to see what is the impediment to getting this into classrooms. And I saw all these amazing things out there, but the problem was that there were amazing things out there, but you would have to have multiple programs to get them all in, and there just wasn't the time. So I took or my team took the best of the best and distilled it down into one. So we have not only the 5 core components of social emotional learning, but we have character education, positive psychology, neuroscience, mindfulness, growth mindset, post-traumatic growth and resilience, all on a trauma-informed base. And we start with the self, because you have to love and accept and appreciate yourself before you can do that with someone else. Then we extend the learning into classrooms, schools, homes, communities, and now even businesses. It's a full lifespan solution. And we have all of this programming at no cost, because my son was priced out of the market. We had purchased, as a school district, a social emotional learning program that was very expensive. We didn't have enough money to train the teachers, so I never got out of the box. So I realized that we need to change things, and every child deserves this. My son would be alive. Adam Lanza would be alive. And we could reduce and prevent so much suffering if children had this. So all of this programming is no cost. And there is also a parent component. So if you go onto our website, chooselovemovement.org, there is a whole parent component, several different ways that you can do it. I encourage you to do that anyway, to download the toolkit and check it out. We're also, it's translated into Spanish and being translated into other languages as well. By word of mouth, in the last 6 years, this has been spread to all 50 states and 150 countries. So we're positively impacting millions of kids. And word of mouth is still the most powerful way to spread a message. Pretty cool. I have been saying that I believe the majority of the suffering that we see can be reduced and prevented by learning these skills and tools. I just want to introduce Jesse, and then we're going to delve a little bit further into the formula, so you can take that as a skill and tool in your belt for life. But this is Jesse's first grade class picture, taken less than 2 months before his murder. And you see that he's got his little collar up and he's got his polo shirt on. He was always a very snappy dresser all the time. And always smiling, always happy. He was born 11 pounds. So the first time that I saw him, because he was a C-section, I walked to the nursery, and all these nurses are gathered around the window taking pictures. I walked up behind them and I said, what are you taking pictures of? And they said, there's this enormous baby who's crawled down to the end of his bassinet, and he's trying to crawl out. And there Jesse was at less than 24 hours old, trying to get out of his bassinet. And that gives you a good idea of his level of energy his entire life. And this picture in the upper right-hand corner is of Jesse on our farm. For his 6th birthday, he wanted all of his friends to come and do pony rides. So that's that picture. Now, Jesse's 2 favorite things in life were little yellow ducks and these little military men figurines. And he would play with both of those in the bathtub, walk around with a Spider-Man lunchbox filled with half and half. So when we knew that we wanted to start in schools and we wanted something of Jesse to be in the logo, we thought, okay, let's see, military men or ducks? So that's how we got the duck logo. So let's go into the formula, because I want you to be able to practice this. It starts with courage. Science tells us that courage is like a muscle, that we can practice it to strengthen it. And courage is the willingness and ability to work through obstacles despite feeling embarrassment, fear, reluctance, or uncertainty. What helps you move from fear to love? It is absolutely courage. And you remember the quote from Viktor Frankl, between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space lies our growth and freedom. That space is the present moment. That's when you can turn to whatever is happening and face it. But you need courage. It doesn't take so much courage when you're at your birthday party and everybody there is celebrating you. It's kind of nice to be in the present moment. But when there's conflict, when times are tough, it's a little bit more difficult to be in the present moment, but we need to be in the present moment because then we can take our personal power back and choose how we respond. But we need courage to do that, and we do that in a few ways. One way is to take a brave breath, putting a hand on the heart, a left hand on the belly, taking a breath in through your nose for a count of 4, savoring that breath for 4, and then releasing that breath through the nose for 4, doing that 3 times, bringing all the thoughts to the present moment. That's a brave breath. And kids use that. We had so many incredible stories of how kids use this breath in harrowing situations, but probably my favorite one is from Hawaii. When, do you remember the day that they had I call it the missile crisis? We have ambassadors in different states, and our ambassador in Hawaii said that North Korea can launch a missile and it could reach Hawaii in 17 minutes. So they all have an app on their phone. And it's a launch app, and they all have a plan. So one Saturday morning, the app went off. And it said, this is not a test. There is an incoming missile. So you can imagine. So my ambassador said her plan with her husband, she has 3 grown kids, they were going to go to the hospital. And she said, we just decided we're going to stay in bed and hug each other till the end. But parents were shoving kids down manholes. They were putting them in bathtubs. And of course, 17 minutes came, 18, 19, and people started to realize, maybe this was a mistake, and it turned out to be a mistake. Terrible mistake. But an interesting thing happened on Monday morning. We started getting calls to our schools, and the parents were saying, what are you teaching our kids? Because as we're shoving them down manholes and putting them in bathtubs, they're going, wait, do a brave breath. No, let me show you how to do a brave breath. And they were doing their brave breaths. Wow. And doing brave poses. And there's lots of science behind the benefits of doing these different techniques. Kids love brave poses. Brave poses are expansive poses. They help us feel self-confident. There's research that shows that when kids do brave poses before they go into tests, that they get better grades. What are the other benefits? Psychological power enhances executive function. It enhances performance. It gives a feeling of power. And of course, we know breathing is life force and decreases stress and anxiety and relaxes us and improves sleep and increases circulation. You all can also learn about the Brave Breath. It's in the parent program. And I do brave poses when I'm way out of my comfort zone as well. Here's some examples of when we practice courage during the day. Being kind when someone's not kind to us. That's courage for big and little kids. Choosing how you thoughtfully respond in any situation instead of just impetuously reacting. Telling the truth. That takes courage sometimes. Pausing when we're angry to identify what that underlying feeling is. Why am I being so triggered? Doing the right thing instead of what's easy. Stopping to help someone. Expanding your friend group. Smiling when you don't feel like it. This is all stuff that courage helps us do. And there's so much research behind practicing courage. Courage is confidence. It creates leadership. It helps us be upstanders. It makes us feel good. It helps us master emotions, helps us accomplish things and make good choices, helps us overcome fear, find balance, and it helps to counter bullying. There's research that shows that when you stand up to bullying behavior, that behavior stops within 10 seconds. And we've seen that play out time and time again on the playground. When kids practice their courage, they stand up to bullies, and they've not only stopped the bullying, but they've befriended their bully. It's been really incredible. In fact, one elementary school teacher had a parent call and say, "My son's getting bullied. What are you going to do about it?" And the teacher said, "Well, we're working on this program called Choose Love. We're working on courage. We're building our courage muscle." The parent said, "That's not what I asked you. I asked you, what are you doing about it?" And she said, "Well, this is how we're trying to handle this now. We're trying to build our courage muscle." She didn't understand. Well, that boy went outside and stood up to his bully. They befriended each other. The parent called the teacher back the next day and said, "I'm sorry. I understand what you were saying now," because he was able to deal with that situation himself. Okay, so we need to do courage first. We have to practice our courage muscle first because it absolutely takes courage to be grateful when things aren't going our way. Gratitude is amazing. You all have heard about gratitude, but we use gratitude as the great mind shifter. Remember going back to the neuroscience where the majority of our thoughts on a daily basis are negative and almost all of them repetitive? Well, here's the secret sauce. When I talk to kids, I say, you're never going to forget this. You're going to take this in your tool belt of life. You're going to use it all the time. You will never forget it. It's a gift. You can only focus on one thought at a time. You know all the multitasking that you do every day and you think you do so well? That really you can't do either. But really, with your thoughts, you can only think of one thought at a time. Wow. So that means when you're having an angry, resentful, frustrated thought, you can switch it out for a grateful thought, and you can shift the focus of the lens of your focus to gratitude when you're ready. And by the way, whatever you're feeling is fine. Anger can be, oh my gosh, so helpful. It can be information. All of our emotions, regardless of what they are just information for our body. And anger can help motivate us to get out of a situation we need to. Anger can be a good thing. When it becomes prolonged anger is when it becomes negative for us. So the great mind shifter, when you're ready, we have these perseverating thoughts. We focus on negative stuff. We can use gratitude to shift our focus. The get to versus the have to. Those of you who have heard me before have heard me tell this story, but it still happens. In the grocery store, I have a mom bump my cart, and say, oh, Scarlett, oh my God, I have to go home and I have to take 3 boys to 3 different sporting events. And then I have to go home and I have to do a huge pile of dirty, smelly, disgusting laundry from 3 boys. You know how I translate that? Wow, you get to take 3 boys to 3 different sporting events, and then you get to go home and do laundry from 3 boys? So I guarantee you that your have to is always somebody else's get to. I came to a school one morning early. I got there an hour early. And so I literally backed in. I'm facing the front door, and I was having my Dunkin' Donuts and doing my phone. And very shortly after I pulled in, a van pulled in into the handicap parking right in front of the door, and then started this whole procedure where this man had a lift, and he had to get it was by himself, I don't know how he did it, his wheelchair and his bag. And by the time the buses came and all the kids were coming in, he was wheeling himself in. And I thought, wow, there is a get to. There's my get to. I get to walk in. So simple. And the other thing is positive affirmations. These are some of the things that we teach in the program, positive affirmations. You know, kids that say, oh, I hate myself. I'm so stupid. No one likes me. Well, what happens to that outward expression of negativity when we grow up? Does it go away? No, it goes inward. And that's how we talk to ourselves sometimes. And why do we do that? Do we do that to torture ourselves? No, it's part of our negative bias. That voice is really just trying to keep us safe. So we need to acknowledge it, and then we need to take those negative things that we tell ourselves and turn them into positive things. That can literally rewire our brain. Remember, every single thought that we think impacts us on a cellular level, and it's wiring our brain. We can actually take that negative thought and write a positive thought and then practice it. And we can rewire our brain towards positivity. The scientific benefits of practicing gratitude, so many. Don't worry, we don't have time tonight, but they all lead to greater happiness. Because it's not happiness that makes us grateful, it's actually practicing gratitude that leads to greater happiness. So let's talk about forgiveness. And my new and improved definition is simply taking your personal power back. Taking your personal power back, not allowing the person who hurt you to have control over your thoughts that impact how you feel, that impact how you behave and how you show up in your relationships, taking your personal power back. And you know, one of the reasons that I really chose forgiveness is also for my 12-year-old son, because I wanted to model for him how to move through this. And I knew that I didn't want to do it in an angry way. And I knew that the only way that I could get beyond that was forgiveness. And we know so much about forgiveness through science. So amazing how many incredible discussions I had, even tremendous conflict. My father and I didn't speak for 3 months because we disagreed on the definition of forgiveness. It's kind of funny. I'm only human. Anyway, one of the lessons that we teach is called cutting the cord. And it's because it actually comes from one of the first presentations that I gave to at-risk youth after the tragedy. And I said, I felt like I was attached by an umbilical cord to Adam Lanza, but it didn't come out of my tummy. It came out of my side. It ran into his side, and all of my personal power drained out of me in the form of anger through the cord and into Adam. And then I dragged him around with me everywhere I went, into the bathroom, to the grocery store, because I was giving him power over my thoughts that impact how I feel, that then impact my behavior. And forgiveness to me was a big set of scissors. I took those scissors and I cut that cord that attached me to pain. All my personal power ran back into me, and it felt so good. But I do fall back into anger. I feel anger on the anniversary, on Mother's Day, on my birthday, on Valentine's Day coming up, on Jesse's birthday, just a few days out of the year. And when I do, I take a step back, I take a deep breath, and I forgive again. Because we know that forgiveness starts with a choice, and then it becomes a process. But it is one of the only ways that I could take my personal power back in this. And it's been very powerful. I love this quote. If you knew everyone's story, let's take it one step further, you would love them. You can't really hate anyone if you know everything that happened to them between their birth and now, why they became the way they became, why they have walls up or down. If you truly know someone, you would get it. You know, the person who hurt you hurt people. And that is true. And if you look at the person that's hurt you, they are a hurt person themselves. And so that helps you move that understanding towards compassion, which helps the forgiveness process a lot. But for some people, it's just a choice. It just starts with a choice, and then it becomes a practice, and you move into that. But we teach this, and here's the thing. When people heard I wanted to put forgiveness in the program for kids, they said, no way, forgiveness, that's way too lofty a topic. They're not going to be able to understand what forgiveness is. Here's the amazing thing. Kids love it. It is their favorite character value. I mean, it blows my mind. I was sitting at a school, and I was giving away these bands, by the way, that I brought for everyone, and to fifth grade boys, and it was their last day of school. Tomorrow they're off for summer. They're so excited. They're running around, yelling, screaming. I'm passing out these bands. Hey, you just finished a year of Choose Love. What's your favorite character value? I'm thinking courage or compassion, because it feels so good to do for someone else. Forgiveness. I'm like, really? Why? And they said, because it's like a superpower. It feels so good to let it go. Kids get it. When you ask them, well, what's your favorite character value to practice? Forgiveness. They get it. They can do it. Turns out we don't really understand forgiveness. We think it's a gift that we give somebody else that doesn't deserve it. When in actuality, when you look at the decades of research behind the benefits of forgiveness, it's a gift that we give ourselves. Check it out. Healthier relationships is the number one benefit. And remember Harvard University's 75-year longitudinal study that said that healthy relationships was the key to happiness? See how this starts to all come together? Less anger. Significantly less anger when you forgive. Greater physical and psychological well-being. Less stress and anxiety. Hostility. Lower blood pressure, fewer symptoms of depression, stronger immune system, higher self-esteem, better heart health, and it extends your lifespan. It has to be really powerful if it extends your lifespan. And then here's the last character value, compassion in action. So this is important, especially with educators and those of you in the medical field, really important because I've seen a lot of articles come out about compassion fatigue, compassion burnout. Actually, when you look at the science behind compassion, there is no such thing. Because compassion strengthens you, it fortifies you, it nurtures you. But there is empathy burnout and empathy fatigue. Empathy lights up the same receptors in your brain as physical pain. You know, empathy, when you put yourself in somebody else's shoes and you feel their pain, that is a painful process. That can lead to burnout and fatigue, but not compassion. And it's really important to be aware of this. Compassion strengthens. Compassion in action. So compassion is the identifying of the need of someone, and then action, the active thought, the active practice of doing something to help ease whatever that need is. And I like to talk about JT, who was 12 years old when his little brother was murdered. He didn't want to go back to school, and I didn't blame him, and I didn't want him to go back to school. So we had this kind of conundrum, and it'd been about a month, He was very angry, as you can imagine, and he had a group of orphan genocide survivors from Rwanda reach out to him. And so Rwanda had a genocide where over 1 million Tutsis were murdered by their neighboring Hutus within 100 days. And this was 20 years ago. And so these young adults were children when their siblings and parents were murdered in front of them. And they grew up in camps. And they reached out to JT with an interpreter. They said, JT, we heard about everything that happened to your brother, and we want you to know that you're going to be okay and you're going to feel joy again. And I was standing behind him during this, and I thought, whoa, these people have been through much worse than we have, and they're telling us we're going to be okay and feel joy. I'm listening. So they started talking about forgiveness and the importance of forgiveness in their healing process, and gratitude and the courage that it took. And then, of course, they were practicing compassion by reaching out to JT. So later that evening, JT came into the living room where I was sitting, and he said, I'm going to school tomorrow. And I said, you are? Okay. He said, those kids reached out to me in love, and I'm going to reach back out to them. I'm going to start raising money to send them to university. So he started an organization called Newtown Helps Rwanda, and he started sitting at games, selling bands on the sidelines. And he raised enough money within a couple of months to send 2 orphan genocide survivors to university. And I was there when he was able to Skype back and make this announcement. And the woman that they had picked on the other side collapsed. And JT said, is she okay? And I said, you've just fundamentally changed her life. She, we shouldn't have surprised her with it, but, wow, she's grateful. And it felt so good to him. It felt so good to him that he kept going. He kept raising money. He built self-sustaining fish ponds for former children's soldiers in Uganda. He built a poultry operation. And the point of this is, and what I was watching as his mom, is that all of the nurturing, healing love that he was giving out, he was getting back. He was healing himself. Now, by the way, I've dragged him around to therapists. It doesn't work for JT. He's healing himself by helping and healing others. What a concept. It was incredible to watch. And by the way, it's what I do too. I mean, I'm here sharing my story and talking about a solution, but it is also very healing to me. It is practicing compassion in action. Check out what the science is. When we do for others, scientifically, this is what that does for us. It makes us feel happy. It releases oxytocin in our brain and other feel-good neurochemicals that mimic a runner's high. It's good for our health and well-being. It promotes relationship skills and connection. Connection is love. It's fulfilling. What you give, you get back in spades. It evokes gratitude. It's contagious. When people see you doing something for someone else, they want to do it. It creates a ripple effect. It counteracts depression, anger, and anxiety. It reduces and relieves stress. It increases self-confidence. This is just a partial list, and we're just going to have a little quiz before you leave, so I hope that you've been taking notes. I'm just kidding. Gives us a sense of purpose, better physical, mental, and emotional pain management, and studies show a 22% reduction in mortality when you do for others. Wow. That's pretty amazing. So the bottom line, if you take nothing else away from tonight, I want you to take away that when you help and do for others, you're healing yourself. That's huge. And there is a ripple effect. And you have no idea how powerful that is and how far it extends. So let's make all of this really easy. I'm wrapping up now. Really, really, really simple. We all just want to feel good. That's all. And we're going to do that in only one of 2 ways, based on education and awareness. We're going to do it through anger. Think about it. Anger makes me feel powerful. It makes me feel like I'm in control. Am I? No. Bullying. What is bullying? It's an attempt to off-put your pain. You're going to do it through bullying. Drug use. What's drug use? It's the attempt to reduce pain or maybe belong. So we're going to do it in negative ways, or we're going to do it through learning how to have healthy relationships, being able to manage our emotions and choose love. We just want everyone to have a choice in how they feel good. So our words are so powerful, and our thoughts and our words. This is I think the rice slide is next, but I should have taken it out. So IKEA did this experiment. This is kind of cool. They took 2 corn plants and they put them at opposite ends in a middle school, and they instructed the kids that while they're walking back and forth to classes to bully one corn plant. And so on the video, you can literally look this up online. It's really funny. The kids are going, "I hate you, corn plant. You're an ugly color of green, and nobody wants you in this school." And then they were told to love the corn plant on the right. So they're saying, "Oh, love you, corn plant. You release oxygen, and we need you, and your color is so beautiful." Well, look what happened. A couple weeks later, I think it was 6 weeks later, IKEA brought them together. And check it out. The plant on the left is dying. The plant on the right is twice the size. Our thoughts and our words are powerful. And I want you to go tonight, and I want you to think about what you think about. I want you to listen to the words that you're saying. And then I want you to listen to the words, actively listen. You know, like we listen and like you're saying something and I'm going, "Okay, I know exactly what to say to that. All right, hurry up. I'm going to tell you." No, actively listen. Just listen. Don't listen to respond. Listen to what other people are saying. Because we do, as you were saying, we do have to hold each other accountable, hold ourselves accountable, and you will be amazed. Even on my team, you know, I have people that say, "Oh, I'm so stupid," right? Or I was working at my mom's antique shop the other day, and a woman came in, and she was saying, "This world is so out of control. It's terrible. I'm just walking. I'm sick. It just makes me so sick." Right? And I had to stop her. She didn't buy anything. Do you hear what you're saying? You're saying that the world is making you sick. And you're telling your body that. You're telling your cells that. How about the world is making you strong? The world is making me capable. The world is making me be present. Change up the words. You'll be amazed when you start listening to yourself, what you say every day and the way that you say it. Then start listening to each other. So we have this thing where we respond with love, right? When I hear something like that my team is saying, I say, "Hey, listen to what you're saying. Let's flip that around. What could we say instead of that makes me sick? You know, how about that makes me strong?" So help each other. We have to help each other. I need help. I have my team telling me. I go around and I talk about this all the time, and I need to be reminded. And we have to help each other. That is compassion in action. So this isn't rocket science, what I've said tonight, but it is actually all science, which is really cool. And Jesse left another message for his older brother. On his desk. It was folded up very little. Jesse wrote to JT, and JT found it after Jesse's murder, "Have a lot of fun." And I thought, wow, oh my gosh, that is such a beautiful message from a little brother who was bouncing off the walls with fun to a big brother, but also for all of us. Fun is so important. In fact, in the 60s, there was the shooting at the University of Texas, where Charles Atwater climbed into the bell tower and murdered a bunch of people on his campus. Do you guys remember hearing about that? So the governor at that time said, "We are sparing no expense. We're going to find out why this happened." So he hired the top violence researcher, Charles Stewart. And Charles Stewart came in, he tore apart Charles Atwater's social biology from birth to death. And then he hired other researchers, and they went into prisons, and they took the worst of the worst, and they looked at their social biology from birth to death. And then they compared them. And do you know what one of the most powerful things that was evident in all of them, that was a similarity in all of them? It was lack of unstructured play in their childhood. What? Play is so important. We learn so much from our play, and we don't get enough of it. Little kids and big kids. It's really important. In fact, Charles Stewart, who went from top violence researcher, he decided to become the top play researcher, which is what he does now. And that story is on his website. It's so important that we play. So here we have the two most important things that we do every single day. Choosing love as the base of every decision that we make, because we're either choosing from a foundation of love or fear. Think about it in choices that you make. Literally, you're choosing from a base of love or fear, and the outcome looks vastly different. And having a lot of fun. We need to do this too. Really important. So I want to thank you for listening to the message tonight. I'm going to leave you with anthropologist Margaret Mead's famous quote, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world, because indeed it's the only thing that ever has, and you all are that small group of thoughtful, committed citizens." Thank you very much for choosing love.
I was going to say, at this moment, if anybody has any questions for Ms. Lewis, I'm sure she'd be happy to answer anything for you. So I would say just repeat whatever is asked, just in case for the live stream.
I did take the rice slide out. Yeah. Yes. So the question was, do we have to do everything at once? Because you've been doing pieces of it, but what's the vision for it? And so I think that it depends on different cultures of schools and what's going on, but ultimately, you would like everybody to be doing it at once and loving and supporting everybody else's efforts, but that usually doesn't happen. Oh, I shouldn't say that. We're working towards that, right? So as much of it as you can take in, that's what you should do. And you know, educators do what they can. You know, they take the pieces of it that they can, that resonate with them, that they're comfortable teaching, and they do that. The beautiful thing about this is that there is no training required. So for educators, they learn and practice alongside the kids. And so that's the beautiful thing about this. Even though we have now a full offering of professional development, but there is training on the website. You can go through. It's 3 hours, but you can do that too. But I would do what you're doing. I mean, the parents' favorite things are those calendars, and they love to practice the daily things on the calendars, and just to get that languaging going. I would say anything that you can do is good. Thank you for that. Yay. Yay. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Ah, that's wonderful. Zoom. Yeah. What age group is your class? Okay. Okay. Yes. Because it feels good, right? Yeah. Aw. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for coming. What is your name? Elaine. Thank you for coming. So Elaine teaches 3rd and 4th grade special education in Chester, and they're choosing love, and it's going well. And I think, you know, when it's brought into a school, we suggest that you get a Choose Love champion group. And so these are people that you know are going to be excited about it and want to do it and are going to love and support the others that might be a little bit more reticent. But it does spread pretty quickly when you do it like that. Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you for that. I see where your daughter gets it. No, I'm just kidding. Yes, there is. There is a community portion to this. And it's done in Rotary clubs. First responders do this. Bus drivers do it. Librarians do it. So it can be taken in anywhere and taught and practiced anywhere. Governmental agencies do it. Foster care does it. I'm trying to think of different places. But the other thing that I did just do, I think since I saw you all, the Choose Love bus that I talked about. Yeah, so you know how you have ideas, they come to you, not from you. But I've been telling everybody at some point I'm going to have to take a bus. I have to wrap it, and I'm going to have to bring this message out on the road. And everybody thought I was crazy. Like, seriously, there's so much you need to do before you do that. But I said, I know, but I'm going to do it at some point. And so I was in New Hampshire with my New Hampshire ambassador. We're going from school to school, and we passed this used car lot. And I said, that's it. And I said, turn around. She's like, to the used car lot? And I said, yeah, there's the RV. So I did. I took pictures of it. I sent it to my board of directors. They didn't even write me back because they're like, maybe if we ignore her, she will just go away like she does. And so anyway, we ended up getting the bus, wrapping it. And so this is a great idea for communities as well. And we've been doing this in the fall, driving this and partnering with local 501c3s and organizations and entertainment and bringing everyone together. And what we do is set up stations. We have cornhole games. We have a duck, a life-size duck. We have a Choose Love comfort dog. And we set up stations. And so the Courage Station is first responders usually that volunteer to do brave poses and brave breaths with the kids. And I mean, perfect for a first responder to say, you know, courage is not the absence of fear. We still feel fear, but we do it anyway. And this is how we do it. It's so great. And the kids love it. And then they go to the gratitude table. They get little passports. So then the first responders, they stamp the passport. This is another answer to your question for community. Then everyone, big kids and little kids, go to the gratitude table. They get stationery with envelopes, and they write gratitude letters. But it's not just like writing a gratitude letter. It's like, how does this make you feel when you're writing it? How did you feel before? How does this make you feel? How do you think it's going to make the person that you give this letter to feel? It's self-awareness, right? So important. And then they get to take that letter and they get a little stamp, and then they go to the forgiveness table. The forgiveness table, where they write down something that hurt them or some way that they hurt someone else. And there are 2 garbage cans, one labeled self, one labeled other. And even the little pre-K kids, you go, can you think of a time that somebody hurt you? Mm-hmm. Can you think of a time when you hurt somebody else's feelings? They know exactly what you're talking about. And I was floored by the amount of pain, shame, guilt that these little tiny kids carried with them. Did I talk about this last time? I mean, there was one little girl, I got a picture of this. She's 6 years old. She's writing on her little sheet, I am so sorry, S-O-R-E, for F-O-R-E, everything I done. So. And I'm thinking, what could she have done? She's 6 years old. You know what I mean? She crumpled it up and threw it in the self can. I'm walking around. I walked around, and there was another little boy. He's ripping up his, and he's young. He's mad. He's red. He's got a bead of sweat. Ripping. I didn't read what he wrote, but I said, what are you going to do with all that pain? What are you going to do with all that hurt? And he walks over, and he slam dunks it in the bin for the other, and he's walking away. And I said, does that feel good? And he turns around, and he goes, better. But I'm thinking I would have just bawled my eyes out with all the pain that I saw in these little kids. But I kept telling myself, you're giving them a release valve. You're giving them a coping mechanism and a tool, so they're going to be able, they'll be able to use this. And then the Compassion in Action table, we partnered with some organizations for homeless. So we were kids would come and they'd be able to build bags for homeless, putting canned goods, and we tied quilts. We did little, in other places, we did little wooden coins that we decorated, and the kids got to take, and then they got to give wooden coins to people that seemed like they needed to pick me up. I walked away with a bunch of wooden coins. And then they go to a table and they get like a T-shirt or something that says, I chose love, and a duck, and a sticker and a bracelet or something. So that's another community event thing that we've been doing that gets the whole community together. And I mean, I didn't choose it. It just happened. But during COVID, when everybody's been isolated and then going to these places, and in some of these places, it was the first time that everybody had gotten together. It was amazing. So that's another idea for that. Be creative. We have Choose Love Awareness Month, so we have communities around the country that have done proclamations, and governor's offices are doing proclamations. Bentonville, Arkansas, and I'm from Fayetteville, Arkansas, is celebrating their 4th annual Choose Love Day, where they have different themes. It's all Choose Love, but sometimes it's focused on teachers, and sometimes it's focused on other things. So they just kind of made it their own and went with it. But it feels good to focus on love. Any other question? You can ask me anything. And I'll also be here afterwards. So if you want to come and ask me a question in private, that's fine too. I have bands that I brought with the formula on them, and it has our website inside them. And so this is how you can remember what it is. I just really want to thank you guys for coming out. I appreciate it. Thank you for choosing love. Thank you. Thank you.